On the night of the 21st of December 1997, the government arrested top army officials including the Deputy Head of State, Lieutenant General Oladipo Diya, Major General Tunji Olanrewaju, Major General Abdulkarim Adisa, and 8 others for allegedly plotting to violently overthrow the government of General Sani Abacha. The 8 others included Colonels Daniel Akintonde, Edwin Jando, Peters Alinyode, Emmanuel Shode, Major Olusegun Fadipe, and Diya's political advisor, Professor Femi Odekunle. Most shocking to many Nigerians was the arrest of General Oladipo Diya, the Chief of General Staff, and General Abdulkarim Adisa and Tajudeen Olanrewaju, both former ministers and avowed loyalists of General Sani Abacha. Several aides and friends of General Diya were also arrested. The question on the lips of most Nigerians was, where is the coup? In this video, we will bring to your view the events of what is considered the most phantom coup in Nigeria's history. We will also explain how Lieutenant General Oladipo Diya escaped death 5 times throughout his military career. Please stay tuned. Hello, His Plus. Welcome to Hispo Media. Gabriel here. The seeds for the plot were planted in August 1997 when Air Vice Marshal Idi Musa, the Chief of Defense Intelligence, sounded out General Oladipo Diya, Chief of General Staff, on the content of an unsigned petition said to have emanated from junior officers. The Chief of General Staff was intimated of the content of an anonymous petition purported to have been written by junior officers, complaining over the way General Abacha was running the affairs of the country. Following on the heels of that initial exploratory visit was that of Major General Ishaya Bamiyi, which was intended to have concretizing effect. Again, the line of argument of Bamiyi, the Chief of Army Staff, was that Abacha had reached a dead end. Bamiyi complained about undue interference from above in the running of the army. He gave a few examples of some military posting which he had sanctioned and effected as Chief of Army Staff. But Abacha each time stepped in at the last minute and without consulting with him reversed the orders. Bamiyi preached to Diya that Abacha had sacrificed the army and the nation's interest on the altar of his own personal ambition to rule Nigeria forever. The evidence he presented in support of his position was convincing. Abacha, Bamiyi told Diya, has finalized plans to hijack the presidency. This was evidenced in his direct interference in the running of the 5 political parties, which culminated in their unanimous adoption of him as their sole presidential candidate. Diya was also told that history will not forgive him if he sat pretty while Abacha not only trampled on the military but on the collective will of the people as expressed in the June 12, 1993 elections. If Diya had any misgiving about the sincerity of Bamiyi, it was dispelled when the Chief of Army Staff on tour of military formations around the country in September 1997 was reported as telling soldiers in Kaduna that the army did not support the strident agitation for the self-perpetuation of General Abacha. He describes those who were orchestrating the cause as shaky characters out to foment trouble and derail the transition to civil rule program of General Abacha. Diya, according to sources, was taken in by this pronouncement. Bamiyi's public statement had confirmed his private utterances and discussion with him. Diya suspected nothing even after the army repudiated Bamiyi's public pronouncement. Still, Diya did not harbor any shade of doubt when in subsequent meetings Bamiyi discussed the propriety and strategies of confronting Abacha with the junior officers' demands. The 4 demands of the officers, according to records, were that the original draft of the 1995 Constitution should be promulgated without the mutilation to which Abacha was subjecting the document, that the June 12 crisis be resolved, and that the political prisoners, which include the winner of the June 12, 1993 presidential elections, MKO Abiola, should be released. And finally, that the last demands of the officers was General Abacha should make an unambiguous public pronouncement that he had no intention of succeeding himself. During the preliminary investigations, Diya repeated what he told Bamiyi. Diya was said to have felt that senior officers should confront the commander-in-chief in respect of the demands. He said, "I told him that it was necessary to ensure that the demands represent the view of the generality of the officers of the army." At this point, Bami told the noon-convinced Chief of General Staff that apart from Major General Saki Mukhtar, the general officer commanding the 1st Mechanized Division in Kaduna, all other general officer commandings had been contacted and were supportive of the move against Abacha. Mukhtar was, however, said to be out of the country on assignment. In subsequent meeting with Diya, Bami ensured that he was accompanied by at least one of the contracted and willing general officer commandings. But for Diya, there were still moral, professional, ethnical, and patriotic hurdles to cross. As he told the investigators during interrogation, after they departed, I reflected on the proposition. Demands of this nature made of the commander-in-chief were fraught with dangers. A recognition of these dangers opened up two possibilities. The first was to take into consideration my loyalty to the person of the commander-in-chief and his administration, of which I was a member, and as such brief him about my discussion with Bamiyi and the general officer commanding. The second was to encourage the officers to go ahead and confront the commander-in-chief with the 4-point demands. The implications were just as clear. It was a question of loyalty to General Abacha as a person or loyalty to my country, Nigeria. Perhaps the Chief of General Staff reasoned, if Abacha was not the monster he turned out to be, and if he did not deceitfully intend to transmit to an internationally unacceptable civilian president, it might have been easy to equate loyalty to General Abacha with loyalty to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. According to close sources, the distinction was sharp and clear to Diya, as he was alleged to have told some friends several months later. The proposition of the junior officers was noble and legitimate. I choose to be loyal to my fatherland and resolved to encourage the officers as much as possible. He knew he was making a decision whose implication could impact negatively on his person. Several months after his trial and conviction, Diya has maintained repeatedly that even though my decision that night fetched me a death sentence, I still stand upon the firm belief that the cause was noble and loyalty to the fatherland is supreme and inviolate. The D-Day was Saturday, 20th December 1997. Bamiyi and his retinue of general officer commandings came on schedule to Diya's house, where they all took the final vow to go before Abacha. Diya was not supposed to go with them, the strategy being that he would operate as an outsider person, and when Abacha brought the demand ultimatum to his notice, he would throw his weight behind them, and Abacha, finding he had lost all support, would acquiesce. But one thing was not right. Diya suspected at the 11th hour. This was supposed to be a top priority military assignment, but Bamiyi and all other general officer commandings who were going to execute it were on mufti. Diya did not think much of it until long after his arrest. A few hours after they left, family sources say Diya learned from his own intelligence network that armed soldiers were on their way to storm his house. He could only think that Bamiyi and company had failed. Calculating the seriousness of the situation, Diya's security detail, Deputy Superintendent of Police DSP Adebowale, spirited him away to a hiding place in his own house. Colonel Ibrahim Yakasai was a close confidant to Major Al-Mustafa, the chief security officer to Abacha. In his prison note, Yakasai, who was commander of the strike force, a death squad set up by Major Al-Mustafa to eliminate opponents of General Abacha, said on the 20th of December he got the marching order from Mustafa to arrest Diya for coup plotting. They stormed the Akinola Aguda residence of the Chief of General Staff, but Diya had fled. Yakasai would confirm, "I arrested him in a guest house." There was yet more drama in Aso Rock, where Diya was taken. He was first put in a room where he found his co-conspirators, Bamiyi and others, already in handcuffs. That was a sobering experience for him. His immediate reaction was that if Abacha could actually capture and handcuff almost everybody that mattered in the Nigerian army with such ease and effortlessly, then Abacha must be very invincible indeed. According to one of the coup convicts, Diya at this point assumed leadership of the conspirators, being the most senior officer involved. Thus, when he was taken before Abacha, he owned up to the plot, volunteering to take the blame for everybody involved. He never knew at that time that the capture of Bamiyi and the general officer command things was all a game. He also did not know that the session with Abacha was recorded by secret video and audio equipment, edited out of context and shown to varied interest groups and individuals as convincing evidence that he had admitted the plot and begged Abacha for forgiveness. However, while Oladipo Diya, playing the war general, volunteered to take the blame for others, persuaded by the invincibility of Abacha, a suspect like Mrs. Shola Soile, one of the convicts, revealed, owned up to having typed the so-called coup speech for Diya when the torturers threatened her. However, Diya told the Special Investigation Panel and the Tribunal proper that the poor woman did not type anything close to a coup speech for him. Other prominent convicts who were roped in on account of their utterances are Major General Tajudeen Olanrewaju and Abdulkarim Adisa. The latter was recorded at a session with his bosom friend Brigadier General Ibrahim Sabo, Director of the Directorate of Military Intelligence, complaining privately that things were not going well with the country and within the military. Adisa was said to have told Sabo that he was only wearing the Abacha badge to get by in the public, but that he did not believe in the badge or the man. He shared a disturbing information with Sabo that the incarcerated politician and former Chief of General Staff Shehu Musa Yaradua had been given lethal injection and that the man would die soon. In much the same way as a few others were secretly recorded, Sabo put Adisa on the tape and played back to Abacha and Mustafa. As Sabo reported to Abacha people, Adisa was grumbling. Indeed, the day he was put on tape, Adisa has shown magnanimity to Sabo by giving him 200,000 to spend for his cousin's wedding. At the Coup Tribunal though, sources claimed Adisa had a chance to spill his guff when Sabo was brought in as one of the prosecution witnesses. He said, "You came to my house, drank my tea, asked me for money, yet you brought a recorded tape to my house to set me up." According to the same sources, General Oladipo made the near-fatal mistake of overshooting his mouth. One of the evidences presented against him was that he confirmed to everyone who cared to listen that Abacha was seriously ill and may soon die. In the event of that, he reasoned Diya would succeed him and things would begin to work again. Tribunal record shows that Diya admitted that he was unaware that Adisa or Olanrewaju was part of the plot being masterminded by Bamiyi. He thus expressed doubt that they must have been part of another plot Bamiyi masterminded, a plot within a plot. This was supposed to be the climax of all the various plots against Diya that had been hatched since the middle of 1994. The less than 1 year administration of General Sani Abacha had run into a political storm after the head of state started reneging on some of the promises made to the political class, which initially supported his takeover of government from the lame duck interim national government headed by Chief Ernest Shonekan. Colonel Dangiwa Umar, who resigned his commission over the reluctance of General Ibrahim Babangida to de-annul the June 12, 1993 election, confirmed in 1997 that there were moves in the military post-Babangida era to revalidate the June 12 election. Virtually everyone was involved. General Abacha was there, Diya was involved, and I was also involved. We thought it would be the proper thing to do since Chief Abiola clearly won the election. But Abacha obviously had his own plans. The National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, as well as Umar and a few others noticed the deceit and reacted. NADECO sought to press home its point by giving Abacha an ultimatum to quit office and install Chief MKO Abiola as President and Commander-in-Chief. The NADECO ultimatum and its outcome marked a defining moment in Abacha's presidency, and his military colleagues braced up for the worst. The ultimatum date came and passed. Nothing happened. The seeming reluctance of the opposition to seize the initiative emboldened Abacha. It was also the last nail to the coffin of Diya and those in his political camp who thought Abacha would honor his promises to the politicians. Abacha simply appropriated more powers as he fired the Chief of Army Staff, Rear Admiral Alison Madueke. Also, the consultation culture that prevailed within the Provisional Ruling Council vanished. Abacha became all in all. He made all the decisions. Diya and others, especially Southerners, were sidelined. The humbling of General Oladipo Diya was underscored soon after, when the detention order for Chief Abiola was brought to him to sign. He allegedly refused. And in 24 hours, an amendment to the Detention of Persons Decree 2 of the 1984 was made. The Inspector General of Police was given sweeping powers to invoke the decree and authorize detention of persons without application to any other authority. From then on, until he was ignominiously showed out of the army, no such detention order, sources confirmed, was ever brought to the Chief of General Staff. The head of state dealt straight with the IG of Police, Alhaji Ibrahim Kumasi. At this time, military analysts say Diya should have quit. In fact, quitting could have been able to buy him what he desperately needed at the point: a hero's welcome back into the fold of principled military democrat in the line of Dangiwa Umar. Diya at that time was not unaware of the pressure, especially from Yoruba land, as enormous weight was brought to bear on him, demanding his resignation from the Abacha government. In later years, the general was to regret this naivety about the unfolding drama in the Abacha presidency. Most poignant of this naivety was Diya's belief that he could guide the monstrous Abacha administration back to the path consonant with their stated objective when they seized power on the 17th of November 1993. But from that point henceforth, events moved at a dizzying pace for Diya. First, General Abacha then convoked a distorted conference styled a constitutional conference. It was largely boycotted by Nigerians. The draft of the constitution that came out of the exercise was still being tinkered with to accommodate General Abacha's transmutation ambition when he died on the 8th of June 1998. Before this time, when Abacha could not amend pressing state matters on account of his failing health, he detailed Lieutenant General Jerry Hussaini, his bosom friend and Federal Capital Territory Minister, or his wife Miriam Abacha, to stand in for him. Diya was only a figurehead number 2 man. Don't forget to like this video, share with friends and family on social media, and subscribe to our channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.